What's up, everyone? It's Dakota, and welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be taking a look at Beseech the Mirror, probably one of the most hyped cards from Wilds of Eldraine, and definitely got a lot of speculation once it was spoiled. And I had someone ask me my thoughts and opinions of this card, and I wanted to do a video just kind of being more of like my feelings of the card and a little bit of data that we've been able to collect, or rather not collect, as some foreshadowing with this card now that it's been about a few weeks since the Wilds of Eldraine set came out. So, of course, if you are interested in more videos like this and other Pioneer Modern content, please consider subscribing to the channel, ring the notification bell so you know when those videos get posted. And then down in the description of this video, there is a link to the Discord server as well. You can go ahead and join over there. You can send me video ideas, cards maybe you want me to give my thoughts and opinions on, deck lists, and stuff like that. So, okay, Beseech the Beer. This card, as I alluded to in the beginning, like 10 seconds ago, it was probably one of the most hyped cards in the set. Obviously, like Agatha's Soul's Cauldron is the artifact from the set. I think is seeing the most play from Wilds of Eldraine, mainly in decks that like want to play Grist and stuff and try to like do kind of shenanigans with a creature planeswalker, the first ever creature planeswalker that we have. Beseech Mir definitely, I think, garnered more hype when it was like spoiled, and definitely a lot of people were brewing and trying to play around with it. And of course, we're going to get into why exactly players were messing around with it. So it's a sorcery that costs 3 black and 1 generic, and it has the ability Bargain, which says that you may sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token as long as you cast the spell. So essentially, it's like an additional cost. Like when you have cards like Tormenting Voice that require you to like discard a card. Beseech the Mirror says that like as you cast this as an additional cost, you can sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token. Obviously, not required. So you search your library for a card, you exile it face down, then shuffle. So if you don't bargain it, it's essentially just a 4 mana tutor, a little bit harder to cast tutor at that. But if it was bargained, whatever card you search for, you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost if its spell is mana value 4 or less. Notably, if you put the card in exiled, put the exiled card into your hand if it's not cast this way. So obviously, just from reading it, the power of Beseech the Mirror is just getting to turn maybe like one of your random artifacts, enchantments, or like just tokens that you have made into a card that you can play, and then essentially for 4 mana, you can get anything that cost 4 or less that you could need in a pinch. The One Ring was the first one that came to mind. You have now a ring on like 2, 3, or 4 burden counters. You cast a Beseech the Mirror, you sacrifice that ring, you get a new ring, and you get the protection trigger because technically the spell was cast. Of course, you have some very powerful 4 mana cards in the format that you can get with Beseech the Mirror, the One Ring being the one that most people end up tending to gravitate to. And I've seen a lot of people playing like the Mono Black Coffers deck, which tries to use Urborg and Cabal Coffers to generate a ton of mana to then just kind of get a ton of value from cards like Karn the Great Creator and so on. And Beseech the Mirror is one of the cards played in that deck for the fact that you have that ability to go and get the ring. You have the ability to go get Karn. You generate tons of mana. Karn can go fetch cards from your sideboard, and being a little bit more controlling, you also have the options to go get like Damnation, stuff like that, as like ways to control the board if your opponent starts to kind of go wide or even just kind of go bigger and threatening to end the game in a few turns. Beseech the Mirror kind of gives you additional copies. The like something that we looked at, like I know that when we went over it playing Tron, where you have like Karn plus like the One Ring, and you keep a ring in your sideboard inside of your deck, where like Karn essentially staples a +4 generic cost on the ring itself. If you want to be able to get it and then play in the same turn, it ends up costing 8 instead of costing 4. Beseech the Mirror kind of gets to play around that fact, obviously limiting you to searching cards from your deck, but you can go and search for a a 4 cost card or less and then play it for free, and essentially you pay like 1 or 2 extra mana if you get like a 2 or 3 cost card versus paying a bunch of mana up front and then having to pay the full cost either later or in that same turn when you need it. So Beseech Mir definitely has some utility in that respect. Obviously, just getting to synergize like well in that way with like the One Ring, where you get to draw a ton of cards and then essentially get out of like paying the cost of drawing that many cards with the burn counters and stuff is really nice, and just a little neat topper on this Beseech the Mirror cake that we have made. So we have like the theoretical uses. We have tons of ways that we can make food tokens, ways that we can make clue tokens, ways that we can make creature tokens. You have artifacts and enchantments, well, at least artifacts galore that you can play them. They do something when they enter, and then when you sacrifice them, some like Ichor Wellspring, and some other cards like Chromatic Sphere and like Chromatic Star, as well as like just cards that can give you some additional value for playing them and like have minimal downside in the grand scheme of things. Enchantments as well. There's some enchantments that do very powerful things that can end up backfiring. There's like a few I can think from the Theros Beyond Death set. There's like one that lets you like draw 3 cards or something like that, and then like you lose a life every time you play a spell. Like you could essentially draw 3 cards and then sacrifice it as an additional cost to like play it, and you'd either lose like 1 life in the worst case scenario. In the best case, I'm pretty sure you end up losing 0, and you get to just cast another spell, for free, for 4 mana, which is really neat. So we kind of have like the theoretical, like this is what you could do with the card, and the ceiling on it is very obviously high for the fact that getting to search your deck for something, even at the restriction of it costing 4 less, and getting to cast it for free. Essentially, just making this as like a copy of that card is pretty cool, and I would say pretty flavorful in the fact that like this essentially is like a mirror to like the card that you want, and like you're seeing it. So really cool on that front. In practice, obviously, it hasn't been that amazing. Like if you look at some of the stats on Goldfish for some of the most played spells in Modern and Pioneer, Beseech the Mirror isn't on there, and Liliana makes the list in Pioneer, just barely. But Liliana is a pretty good card. But even I think even by like Pioneer standards, like Liliana is I think appropriate to maybe a little underpowered for the format. And that's a double black spell. Triple black is very much a downside for the card. Obviously, this card needs some kind of downside, simply for the fact that just getting to get any. If this was like 3 generic and a black, it's easily a splashable card. Even at like 2 black and like 2 other, it's still at least not splashable. Like you're getting to the point where it's not necessarily splashable and you're committed to black, but you're able to kind of play some like 2 and 3 color decks, where like triple black you're solidly committed to playing mono black or playing maybe like one additional color, and that additional color is a splash. Definitely trying to play 3 or 4 colors with all these black mana symbols. Maybe in Modern is a little bit more manageable, and Pioneer a little bit harder for the fact that like we don't have fetch lands. And just on the lack of things that you want to sacrifice, because if you want to play this like on turn 4 and go get something like the One Ring, you have to play some other cards that are kind of like worse for you on the curve. In Pioneer, there definitely is some other enchantments that could see play. I could even see decks like uh, playing the Abundant Growths and things like that as like ways to fix your mana, draw cards that can help you cast Beseeches in Modern, and sacrifice them to end up getting some more powerful cards. But by and large, like this card is very hard to cast for triple black and build a relatively cohesive deck that is very flexible, as we have seen in Pioneer and Modern. Really, like in Pioneer especially, you have like these 5 color fires decks, which just go so much bigger than everybody else. Like you have mono green who can get to the board super fast, and essentially like kind of end the game before Beseech the Mirror can get anything that's relevant that could end it. I mean, you could search for like a sweeper, but you could also be playing like Bring to Light, which is a card that does a similar kind of thing, but like its restriction is having to get different colors versus obviously Beseech the Mirror. You just need triple black and then an additional permanent sacrifice. Bring to Light notably can get cards like Valky that can cast the other side of, to cast Tybalt on the other side of that card. There's also Glyph Weaver where you can like cast the other side of it, and the other side's like a Wrath and stuff. So there's a little bit more flexibility, even at the cost of there being like a restriction on having to play multiple colors. And you can't just play any card. I believe it's like creature, instant sorcery, and then like maybe an enchantment. So, there's definitely like that restriction on the card, but Beseech the Mirror, I think its restriction is a lot higher of a cost than it is for something like Bring to Light, for something like Fires of Invention, Incarnation in Pioneer, and then of course Modern. People are playing like 4-color Omnath, like that's the big thing. That's like one of the best cards that you can get like at 4 mana, and really just having triple black in a deck that wants to cast a card that has no black in its mana cost and also doesn't produce any black when you trigger its abilities is not very ideal. And I think there is some world where, Beseech the Mirror can be a card that is played in some decks like alongside Dryad, where you can play, the sort of ramp strategy where you're playing like Grazers and stuff, then you can sacrifice Grazer, or even like Abundant Growths to then go and get like the One Rings. You can go get uh, your Dryads and stuff like that, or you can cast like Scape Shift and like Scape Shift people with something like this. So definitely not totally out of the realm of possibility that this card could still be good. Obviously, it's very early. Not every card that does something powerful sees play immediately. There's definitely a history of cards in Modern and even in Pioneer as well, just kind of showing up, out of nowhere, like months, years down the road, and being successful in the format, and end up being like format staples. Like Death Shadow being probably one of the biggest poster boys for that, for that fact. So. While Beseech the Mirror, I think in a vacuum is a very powerful card and is a very powerful ability with some additional upside on being able to sacrifice permanents, obviously, with all the numerous mechanics and things that care about going to the graveyard, Beseech the Mirror could be like give you some additional upside on top of obviously getting to cast something of the same mana value or less for free. Just in practice, the mana cost kind of holds it back, and even if you get to say cast this card for free, you're still having to sacrifice something to end up getting that value, and whatever you're getting is probably the same as like what you're sacrificing in some of like the fires type decks and things like that. Of course, as I've been prefacing, as I've been saying, like that could change. There's definitely some build arounds to make mana a little bit better to where you can play some like 2 or maybe 3 color decks to kind of fit this in there. But I think overall, currently, as the formats stand, I think it's just not viable to do. And there's a lot of other things that people can do. That doesn't mean that you can't come up with your own deck and your own thing. But when it comes to competitive players and trying to win, this just might not be it in terms of, being a card that is going to see widespread play. But I think be a role player in some of those like mono black coffers decks that we've seen popping up. And I think have been around for a while, but just kind of have a new toy to play with, and we'll be seeing them for a while just to kind of see what they're made of. So yeah, that is my thoughts and opinions on Beseech the Mirror. If you've enjoyed a video like this and you want to see more of my thoughts and opinions on other cards in a shorter or longer form, be sure to like the video, comment down below if there's any cards that you want me to check out. Really do on any of the videos and stuff. I really like doing stuff like this. I just kind of have a hard place like finding where to start. So if this content interests you, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Discord, just join the Discord server, all that fun stuff. That's gonna do it for me. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you all in the next one.